Welcome to episode 274 of That Great Business Show. I am Conall Ó Mórain. Now, every business owner thinks they know their market until they meet today's guest. That's Roger Courtney, founder and CEO of Sunstone Technologies. He has built what he calls a Bespoke Addressable Market approach, or a BAM, a new way for B2B companies to see who their customers really are, where the biggest opportunities lie, and how much potential they're actually leaving on the table. Roger's system uses real economic data and a company's own commercial history to scientifically define its markets, that's what they say, hopefully giving sharper targeting, stronger sales performance, and the one we like best, big savings on wasted marketing spend. And if you've ever wondered whether your sales and marketing team are chasing the right opportunities, this episode may be the very thing you're looking for. We may be just about to save you a lot of money. We are, as always, powered by our friends down in Mayo, Facto Shaving Oil, the world's best shaving oil, made in Mayo, sold worldwide. It is the perfect present. Go for it. defactoshave.com. Roger Courtney, welcome to That Great Business Show. And before we start, you have made a movie.
I did in
you made a lot of things, actually.
Yeah, it's a very bad habit of mine. I keep having to make things. So in 2017, we made a film called Killers Within. It was an Irish written, directed, produced feature action comedy horror. It's terrific fun. It's on IMDb with a very, very solid 5 rating, which puts it into the solidly watchable category. But it has some really fantastic and funny moments in it. Very Irish humor, some terrific special effects, some great acting, and some really talented young Irish actors as well.
And there's a business behind that as well, because you did say to me off camera, is that you might do it again.
Oh, a secret hope someday.
Okay, so one of those ones.
Well, we very much produced the film as a sort of a proof of concept to see if we could kind of get real Irish talent to produce, in the same style as Paranormal Activity, a really low budget but high concept horror film. Because, you know, horror films rely much more on concept than they do on special effects, for example. And so if you got a really good idea, and we did, which was, what if a Monster in the House movie was actually a reverse engineered tiger kidnapping? And, you know, the whole idea is that it all sort of flows from there. And it's a sort of a rollicking adventure which involves car crashes and bank heists and all kinds of fun stuff.
Did it make you any money?
Technically speaking, it put us in the top 15% of all films in that it made a profit. But that profit paid for a fantastic night in the cinema in Parnell Street for all of our friends and family.
Oh, okay.
So that was lovely.
Why you may not go again.
No, it was distributed into 23 countries.
That's all right.
And I have the Japanese, American, UK, and Irish versions of my own DVD, and I can't even read the Japanese one.
Well done, you. I love those, because you have many, many other talents, lots of other things that you've done. But let's get back down to BAM, because we are business, we're strictly business, and you are going to tell B2B companies how they should be B2Bing better.
Absolutely. Well, the whole thing came from when in 2021 I took over a small data company called Bill Moss Data. And in 2021,
was there a person called Bill Moss? I keep meaning to ask you that.
In 1994, the founder, Bill Moss himself, founded the Bill Moss Partnership, which became Bill Moss Data when I took over in 2021. He had retired in 2016, and he had actually been a very innovative businessman in the first place. He had actually developed really quite sophisticated lead list understanding in the mid-1990s. But the problem was, by the time I came along in 2021, technology had moved on, but the industry hadn't. So I came into the industry and wanted to just ask some very basic questions like, how many companies are there? And nobody could answer. And that started the journey.
How many companies there were where?
In Ireland, in the Irish economy.
But is there not a register of companies?
There is, but the core problem that we discovered and began to address was that the information within the economy is disordered. And it's disordered because of reliance on a technology invented in 1970, which is a classification system called NACE codes. And the problem is NACE codes are correct about 40% of the time.
Are these the long numbers that I've seen before? Is that it? Or
no, they're actually very, very short descriptor codes where it might say, for example, this is a printing and publishing of newspapers company. Mm-hmm. So, for example, the Bill Moss Partnership was formed and it was the printing and publishing of newspapers, which it never was. It was a data company. But the problem is NACE codes were set and defined in 1970 before the computer era. So how can you possibly have an accurate understanding of the current economy relying on NACE codes? And every single data company in the world who's selling European-based data relies on NACE codes as the key to the economy. So the problem is the information within the Irish economy is all contained within the CRO. That's a tremendous database of economic intelligence. But the problem is nobody really knows what is a legitimate trading company, an SPV, Is it dormant? Are the accounts being filed? There's about 1 million records in the CRO, but nobody could tell me how many actual companies were live and trading within the Irish economy.
Are there not? You know, these companies that will tell you who look at a company's accounts. Do they not know how many of them are live and kicking?
The issue is the categorization and the classification systems. So the problem is nobody knows how many types or how many of each type of company are in the economy. So, for example, if you take a B2B company and you say, right, I want to sell to all the engineering firms in the country, they will go to the CRO record and they will take the NACE code extract of, here's all the companies that are engineering companies. But the problem is that's only 40% accurate, which means you're leaving 60% of your market on the table by over-reliance on an outdated system that we have now replaced with a proprietary technology called MAPS.
And how have you done that? And what are you doing?
We combine effectively the two hemispheres of the intelligence required to really understand the economy. The first one is the CRO. That's like the quant or the left brain. The right brain is the internet. That's the qualitative. That's what a company says about itself. And that's actually much more important in terms of determining what the company is and what it does and its products and services.
So are you scraping that the self-description of each company?
All the way down to products and services.
Oh my God.
So what we've done is we've used that information to reorder and reclassify the CRO.
How long did this part that you're pointing at, how long does that take?
Well, we're just about finishing it now. That's 4 years.
Yeah.
So we have literally just finished reclassifying the Irish economy. And we're starting on the UK. We'll be trading there in March.
We'll stick with Ireland for the while. What have you found out?
That the accuracy in the market is only 40%.
Okay,
that most people...
Well, right, we'll accept that. But what have you found out that is very, very useful beyond that?
Well, I'd love to talk through the system of a BAM, because a bespoke addressable market is actually a totally new way of understanding a B2B economy. It's the relationship of a B2B company to its market. So the idea is not to try and figure out what's going on in the economy. It's the relationship between the company and the market itself. So if we start off, take an example, Frisbee Inc., they're making the sell Frisbees. They're B2B. It doesn't matter. It's totally agnostic. But let's say they've got 200 customers. They want more. They've bought lists. They've sent out emails. They've done warm-ups. They've done marketing, but they're not really getting anywhere. So the problem is most outbound B2B sales and marketing is noise. You're giving Google money to rainmake you. You're posting on LinkedIn. You're making phone calls to companies that may or may not be clients of yours, but none of this is based on any strategic intelligence. So what we do is we take a different approach. We say to Frisbee Inc., okay, well, let's take a look at your 200 customers. Let's see who you like, who you don't like. Let's see who's profitable for you and who's not. So tell us your A, B, C, D, where A is your favorite client, you wish you had more, and D is the client that, maybe it's not even profitable to service that client anymore. So we have, let's say, their preferences, A, B, C, D, 50, 50, 50, 50. Now, what we do is we take those 200 companies and we reclassify them using MAPS, which is Market Activity Profiling System, which is what joins the CRO and the internet firmographic data together. We then would, let's say, reclassify those into their actual trading sectors. That might be, let's say, 100 microcategories. If you turn those microcategories into buckets, and then you populate those buckets with every other company in the country that trades in the same sector, you end up with two sets. Set A, the companies you sell to. Set B, the companies you don't sell to, but that trade in the same sectors as set A. So for example, if it's 200, it's likely to be approximately 10,000, because this would be a sort of an average. If you give me 100 companies built out as a full market, that might be 6,500, 7,000. 200 companies, about 10,000 companies. So we've got our 200, we've got our 10,000. We then apply the same schematic for the 200 to the 10,000. Now we have 2,500 A targets, 2,500 B targets, 2,500 C, 2,500 D. You can instantly double your market efficiency by just cutting off the C's and D's and stop selling to clients that you don't want to sell to. We then start looking for pattern matching between the A's and the A's and the B's and the B's, and we find what we call your next ideal client set. And what that does is it shows you who are the companies out there in the economy that you can rely upon are the most likely to convert and buy from you, so your outbound sales and marketing becomes a sniper rifle, not a shotgun. You're not trying to contact 10,000 people with 15 inaccurate scoops of data from a data provider. You're strategically addressing your market and understanding how you can build a strategic approach on a sectoral basis to make sure you're maximizing your return for your outbound effort.
I can see and hear that this is not the first time you may have pitched this. You may be in love with your product, are you?
I spent a good sort of 2 or 3 months in the middle of 2024 talking in my sleep. My wife informs me. I got quite obsessed.
Because what you've done now, have you seen this done elsewhere, or have you borrowed the idea? No. Brand new.
This is totally new. It's a world first. We're not copying anybody.
And it's obviously a business, so therefore there's a cost to the user. Expensive.
Not massively. So I think
Typical. Give me a case study.
Okay, so we have just sold to a microfinance lending company. We are surfacing the entire economy for them and understanding what they have as a market opportunity. Because what we can do is we can say, here's all of the companies in all of the various different sectors that you're targeting. That allows them to quantify the market opportunity. That comes as part of what we call a TAM report, but it's going to become a BAM report when BAM becomes more of a thing. But right now we regard that as a TAM report.
And TAM being total addressable market.
Which is the common parlance at the time. Mm-hmm. So as we change the approach from the, let's say, the scoops of data approach to the BAM approach, we help show companies, okay, so let's say you're trading in 3 sectors, A, B, and C, and you've got 5 customers in each. Which sector is most valuable? There's no information for that unless you know that A has 10 potential clients, B has 20, and C has 100. And then what you can do is you can multiply the A, B, and C remainder of targets by the average contract size per sector, and you can mathematically quantify how much that sector may be worth, and then you can start looking at a serviceable addressable market or obtainable addressable market.
Go back about 5 minutes or 10 minutes ago, you were talking and you used, and I was looking at your website, lists. I didn't even know there were lists anymore because I thought they were no longer GDPR compliant and all. If I buy, you used to be able to go off and buy a list. Is that allowed anymore?
We regard that as a sort of slightly problematic area. Truthfully, when I took over in Bill Moss Data, we were dealing with contact details, list information, contact details. What we focus on now is economic intelligence. We focus on target companies. We don't focus on, let's say, selling somebody's phone number. We don't want to provide the GDPR risk details or information. We want to say, here are the 200 companies that are your next ideal client set. Here's all the information about them, all the way down as far as debtor and creditor day ratios and like every single detail you can possibly imagine on our insights platform. But we're not going to tell you, here's Dave Jones and his mobile number, because frankly, that's GDPR risk and we don't like it.
But is it being done by somebody else? Is that available? I thought, again, I'll say it, I thought it was banned or...
It's available on the market.
Okay.
I believe it to be under something of a cloud in terms of whether or not it's legal or not. But however, the companies that are, generating this information and providing it are doing so, I think, in breach of GDPR regulations, which we try to stick absolutely to the letter of. So
you are above board and all the good stuff, but you also need to make some money. So how much does it cost?
Well, the total addressable market report is €6,000. And what that will do is it will literally show every single company in your selected target market. Again, this isn't scoops of data. This is, we consult and we do a discovery call with the client. We ask who they're looking to sell to. And then we show them the reality of their actual total addressable market in a report form. Then we move into the insights platform. That's the SaaS piece, which is called Sales Site. And what that does is that feeds and refreshes the sales targets, not leads, which are the companies that a B2B company would want to sell to.
And what's the difference between a sales target and a sales lead?
A lead is a person, a target is a company.
Okay.
So the idea is we're showing... Well, it's not that we don't provide leads. It's that we want to focus on the idea of what truly generates value. So one of the pieces in our insights platform is who in this target company that you're looking to sell to is the likeliest buyer based on scale, industry, and profile. So for example, in a smaller company, most things are handled by the CEO. As you get larger and depending on the industry, you might have a HR manager, you might have an acquisitions department, you might have requisitions, you might have all kinds of different things internally in that business. We find that through reverse engineered AI modeling. Okay. But the idea is the person in the company who's going to buy from you may not always be the same person in the same role. It depends on the company.
Now, let me reverse engineer something to you. You've obviously looked at your addressable market. Who is buying your services?
We supply to data companies, very high-end data companies. Of the 7 companies that purchase the entire CRO feed from the CRO, 4 of them are clients of ours. So we supply to data companies themselves. Our added value is the economic intelligence and the insights. And what that is, it's €30,000 a year as a SaaS product. So it's $3,000 a month approximately. But what that does is for a team of, let's say, 10 people, it will drive efficiency for each of those individual team members. And it would basically replace a couple of SDR roles. So you're not going and farming, you're not churning through data through the action of making calls to companies that don't want to buy your product. You're focusing your outbound effort and reducing all of that waste. So the idea is it's actually quite cost effective. Once you know the size of your market, you can pre-resource it. And then once you can understand that you can make your entire team more efficient, that's how you make your margin.
Your website is very detailed. I have read, I think most of it, is that one of the things that you said that still works is the cold call. Now, once upon a time, you may not know this, but I was a stockbroker, and one of my jobs was cold calling. The worst job, I think, in the entire universe has to be done, but it's still working, according to your website.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to give an example, I contacted a company who specializes in building up the financials of a company prior to exit in the very recent past. And I did this as a cold call. I had an idea. I saw a post on LinkedIn. I saw somebody who I thought they might be a very interesting use case for the data that we have and the use cases that we've already made work. So I picked up the phone. His contact details were on the website. I phoned him. Hi, how you doing? Roger, calling from Sunstone. Would love to have a talk with you about something. And he's referred us on to 3 or 4 of his clients actively at the moment, and that will lead to further conversations. Cold calling still works. But you have to be armed with the relevant information and values beforehand. Because if you're cold calling without intelligence, it's a waste of time. But if your cold call opens with, hi, how you doing? We have a client here in our company which would be very similar to yours, and we believe that we have a solution that would be beneficial to you.
What are the other types of companies that would really benefit from what you're doing? For example, I don't know why this comes to my mind, but an IT company, they're selling IT installation or whatever. Where or how would an IT company in that situation use you? Does that identify absolute sweet, hot possibilities?
Absolutely. Well, if we go back to the system where we actually look at the internal client success of that company in the first place, so let's call them IT Inc. IT Inc. already has a success metric that we can measure. They know who they like, they know who they don't like. Mm-hmm. And so we can literally say, okay, you have good success in these particular sectors at this particular level of the market. So there's some really interesting things about bespoke addressable markets that are mathematical. So if we go back to our 210,000, that's set A, set B. If you put set A over set B, that literally becomes your market penetration. That can then be broken down on a sector by sector basis. You can also average the balance sheets of A, average the balance sheets of B, and if A is lower than B, it means you sell to the low end of the market. That's market elevation. And so the idea is you can identify where you're selling into the economy, what level you're succeeding at, and whether or not, for example, if you're selling to the low end of the market, not the high end of the market, you could then use that as a strategic signal to launch a premier or a premium offering. If you find yourself selling to the high end of the market exclusively, you could launch a generic or a secondary brand. The entire idea is to look at what is in the economy as an opportunity sector that you're not exploiting right now and figuring out the best strategic approach to build your business and sell to companies that will help you gear for growth.
And I know everybody in business asks this question, but there is no real answer. How come nobody else has thought of this? How come it's Roger Courtney at Sunstone?
I keep wondering that.
Do you? Actually, do you really?
I do. My background came from private equity. I had a very interesting apprenticeship working for a small family office. And
Kilcullen Capital.
Kilcullen Capital, yes, indeed. Until 2024, very recently. And the idea was that working for Kilcullen Capital made me step outside of the act of working within a company. Made me realize that the companies were things that could be understood from a third-party perspective. And I just extended the view to start looking at the economy itself as a collective of companies and realized that if we could understand the actual shape of the economy, we could understand hugely valuable governing dynamic information about what the behavior of those companies indicates and what opportunities this might reveal. So the idea was I started by looking at a collection of companies as part of a private equity management role. And then when I zoomed out further and looked at the economy itself as a collection of companies, I think the skill that I learned from working from that for Kilcullen was to step outside of things and understand them from a third-party perspective. And then I just applied that to the economy itself.
Now, I won't be able to challenge you on this because I haven't seen any of your numbers. But if you give me a case study and tell me how much you have saved or made, which way it works, for a case study company, what does success look like?
So I'll talk about an R&D tax filing company that was based in the UK looking to come into Ireland. And they looked at the global reporting figures and realized that the OECD average of R&D tax filing is about 6%, and in Ireland it was about 2%. So they assumed that there was a nice chunky 4% of the market to go after. So they came over to Ireland and they started talking to data companies. So they started asking for lists of companies in certain sectors. And the second thing they wanted was companies within 3 months of their AORD. And the third thing was, we want companies with a high spend in research and development, because that would obviously be their sweet spot in their market. So I suppose if you look at question 1, everyone else is working off NACE codes, they're 40% accurate. So instantly, they're not showing the full market. 2, most companies didn't want to go to the trouble of taking a small section of a market and then pulling it down to just companies within 3 months of their AORD. And then for the third query, nobody even had a response. Nobody even thought about it. So Sunstone's approach was to show the entire market in its entirety, revealing a 2.5 times larger BAM. Within that, obviously, our targeting and our firmographic data allows us to be very, very hyper-focused on the right type of companies. So obviously, chopping down to 3-month window, no problem at all. So instantly, we're 2.5 times larger market, cutting down to 25% of the most relevant pieces. And then what we did was we analyzed the firmographic data of their target market, and we ranked them by the frequency of words like research, development, innovation, technology that appeared in their firmographic data, and we ranked them. And they had to tell their sales team to slow down because they ran out of capacity.
Happy days.
The idea is more targets, more accurate targeting within that market, and a better understanding of who you should sell to gear for growth.
Once you have identified the sweet targets for these companies, is that not your job done, or can you get repeat business out of that?
The system continually evolves.
Okay.
The data is a virtuous cycle. The more you understand about your data and your relationship to the economy, the better your company can become. I love the idea of thinking about, let's just say holistic systems, like the Gaia hypothesis, the Earth is one large system. A company in its relation to the economy is a similar thing. So if we go back to our ABCDs here, what if a company could literally say, do you know what? I don't want any more C's and D's. I'm going to price them out of my, sphere, and I'm going to replace those C's and D's with A's and B's because I know they're out there and I can find them because of Sunstone. That company starts selling to more A's and B's. They spend less time on outbound. They spend less time on sales. Their business shifts to a more productive footing, and they will generate more GDP per head of capital within that business than they would if they were doing traditional outbound sales and marketing, email sequencing, warm-ups, cold calls without intelligence. So the entire idea is if you think of every company in the economy could replace their C's and D's with A's and B's, and we could solve the 80-20 problem, we would all be making more money for the same amount of work. And that's where we're going.
And if that happened, of course, everything would be hunky-dory, but it doesn't happen that way. A couple of things could happen. One, you could have a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody out there trying to do the same?
There are companies that sell firmographic information and scraping, but nobody has connected the NACE codes problem to the firmographic data and challenged that yet.
Barrier to entry high?
Very.
Oh, good for you. I mean, and then you mentioned earlier on, the UK is your next market. Has nobody done it there, or is it
no one's
different?
Across Europe. There are 17 countries in Europe that all rely on NACE codes, and our system applies to all of them.
Okay, and you could immediately just apply them all and start scraping and doing whatever you do.
As I said, we've done Ireland. We're starting the UK. We'll be trading in Italy afterwards.
Well, sorry, now you stick with the UK. When do you start, did you say? March?
Oh, no, we've started the processing.
Yeah.
So we'll be trading in March.
Okay. Does that mean boots on the ground? Does that mean having to raise capital? Does that mean...
No need to raise capital. I mean, we're in the middle of a seed round at the moment, but that's really about sort of building out a sort of a rebuild of the front end of the platform, but it works perfectly fine as it is. So it's really more of a longer term project that we're scoping.
I didn't know you were in the middle of a seed round, are you?
Well, I suppose I haven't really broken cover on it yet, but we have made progress already.
You've just told the world.
Indeed.
Can you tell us what kind of money? I mean, I'm sure euro, but what quantum of money?
We're raising 500,000 a 6 mil valuation.
Okay.
And we're at 210.
And if you do that, it's into fourth gear and off to the UK, is it?
It's actually a downshifting gear.
Okay.
The challenge is market education. So the problem is we have to share the BAM approach. We have to show the case studies. It's working very, very well. We've got some serious logos on board. I won't mention them because I don't want to talk about people's strategic commercial information on a podcast, obviously. Yeah. But I think the main idea is that when we do Ireland, we have a whole range of use cases that we're looking forward to bringing forward in the future. And the idea of people copying us, I'd see it as validation. I'd be delighted because there's about 12...
I did a podcast a while ago saying everybody loves competition, not. So
Well, what it would do for me is it would take the burden of me having to educate the market away and allow me to diversify the product set. Because I have a whole range of products already ready.
But could you go into some of the bigger consultancy firms, the Accentures, the EYs of the world, and say, here's a product that you can white label?
We are looking at a strategic partnership with a data company that we already have an existing both supplier and client relationship with. And I'm hoping to build a partnership with them that would allow us to travel across Europe.
Happy days.
In conjunction. I call it the Remora strategy because we'd be the little Remora fish swimming along next to the shark and turning it into a shark ourselves.
Oh, very nice. And if you did 17 countries in Europe, now beyond that, I know you've got to do those countries first. What's beyond that? States?
No. So the United States has a very different data environment. In fact, even the countries within Europe have such different, distinct data characteristics. So Ireland first, because it's where we were. It's very, very small in terms of number of companies within the country. It's an island economy, which meant that it had a sort of a sea border, which differentiated import-export trade, which made things easier for us in terms, like, I actually think it would be very difficult to do what we've done in a mainland European country because it's very difficult to separate out the different parts of the economy effectively. So we're going over to the UK because that's the most number of companies in any country, and that's also a common language. And then afterwards, we're going to Italy because that's where CRIF was formed, and they're one of the most powerful data companies in the world, credit scoring, credit checking, and they've driven the evolution of the Italian data market much more substantially than other similar cultural countries.
A fascinating economy is Italy. I was doing some work with a company called Mediolanum, and 60 million Italians, and there are two economies, as we may know. But it's fantastic. What a fantastic country. Nice place to have to operate.
I went down to the Ireland-Italy game this year, and we flew into Rome, and we took the train down to Bologna and flew back from Bologna afterwards with myself and the boys from school. And it was absolutely magical. I never discovered that apparently tortellini is supposed to be served in broth. I never knew.
Oh, there you go. Every day's a school day. Final question we ask everybody is, who would you, Roger Courtney, hire in a heartbeat?
Andrea Reynolds, founder of Swoop.
Why?
She spoke at the Founders Forum in Enterprise Ireland. And I loved her take on sustainable business and finding real intelligence. What she is, she's also, I suppose, Swoop find funding and they help companies to understand what the funding environment looks like. She spoke on a podcast, which I watched, where she spoke about the potential to unlock serious power within the SME market should they be adequately funded. And the way she thought about the economy mirrored the way I think about the economy, which is to look at it as a holistic thing itself and to understand that if we can manipulate it, that we would reap benefits and substantial ones. And so, having heard her speak, she's on boards with Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway and everything. I mean, she's serious. And if I could, oh my God, I'd love to hire her in a heartbeat.
Well, I wonder, is she available to you?
Oh, I doubt it.
Stranger things have happened. If she likes the concept, she might have a bigger idea where she could bring it as well, remember?
I love the idea of working with her. Andrea,
man wants to talk to you. Right, that's really, really interesting. What will your next big milestone be?
Starting to trade in the UK.
Okay. So how long will that take you? Not to start, but to occupy the UK.
We have a differentiated product that nobody else can offer, which means that if we start to gain traction in Ireland, we can start to build the use case understanding and we can really start to attack with hyper precision over in the UK. We've had conversations with some very serious names who have sadly said to us, listen, that's great. We love the technology, but we can't wait till you're in the UK. When you get there, talk to us. And the problem is that means that we're in a bit of a foot race now. So commercial team and obviously, operations are now focused very heavily on the Irish market. The data team are focused on the UK market. And then obviously the focus commercially will expand and then grow into the UK market as we start to build partnerships.
And if somebody is excited about what they've just heard and they would like to get involved in your funding, are you taking money from people?
I'm certainly interested in conversations.
Okay.
As I said, we're 40% of the way there already.
Cool.
And with active conversations happening, but yes, very much so.
And you will find Roger down at Ringsend. Isn't that where you're based? Sunstone in Ringsend. I was looking at your little map there on the website. Great website. Actually, do check it out. There's a lot of free information in there. So about how to cold call, not so much how to cold call, but what works and what doesn't. So continued success, Roger, and we will give you a shout out and maybe have you back in again when you do the UK. How about that?
That sounds fantastic. Cool. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. And that is a wrap of episode 274 of That Great Business Show, where we just heard when it comes to knowing your customers, guessing is... No, it's not a strategy. As always, a huge thanks to our show sponsor, Facto Shaving Oil, the all-natural, all-Irish way to keep your face nick-free. If you use their sensitive one, it really does make a difference. It is actually really nice on the skin, and you leave it on the skin, and it goes into the skin, leaves it soft and gorgeous. So a big thanks to the team here at Dublin South FM. There's Lee Brennan, Richard Ryan, Neil Horner, and the BB, the big boss himself, Peter Rice, for doing what they do so well. And if you liked what you heard, tell just one great business owner, just one to tune in next time. That's how we're building, and we want to be the biggest and the bestest because we are That Great Business Show. I'm Conall Ó Mórain. Thank you for listening, and as ever, míle buchas agus slán tamil.